Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So yesterday was chock full of a ton of really exciting new Kaldheim spoilers. For example, In Search of Greatness is a 2-mana green enchantment that can help you cast free Eldrazi. If you want to know what I mean by that, make sure you check out that episode to hear my take on it. And speaking of a 2-mana green card, the one in this episode is a doozy. But before we jump into that, a quick spoiler warning. If you're not looking to see a spoiler from Kaldheim, make sure you don't watch this episode, or the last episode that I just referenced. In fact, a lot of my episodes lately have been about spoilers, so maybe go watch a deck tech instead. Maybe my deck tech on Chromat, which is definitely all about Chromat, and not about something else because it was made on April 1st. Anyways, let's jump into it. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Fynn the Fangbearer, and my goodness does Fynn bear his fangs. Fynn's an uncommon commander, so keep that in mind. A 1/3 human warrior with Deathtouch that costs 1 and a green, and here we go. Whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. Yeah, you heard me right. 2 poison counters, meaning that Deathtouch now equals Double Infect. Okay, rules lawyers out there, I know technically not Infect, because Infect also is, putting -1/-1 counters on creatures instead of damage, like Wither, but you get what I mean. And also, it's not poison counters per point of damage, but still. A 1/1 with Deathtouch is going to be just as effective as a 2/2 with Infect in hitting a player, meaning that you just have to hit one player with 5 Deathtouch creatures and they're out of the game. And this commander costs 2 mana and also has Deathtouch. Now, there are of course ways to help out and to speed things up, and we'll get to those here in a second. What I really want to say first is this. I really am enjoying that they're giving us more and more interesting uncommon commanders. For the most part, these aren't just throwaway legendary creatures that you can't build around, but they are truly interesting commanders with unique builds. So again, I just want to say that I'm really enjoying this direction for uncommon commanders, and I'm really excited to see more of these in the future. And also, I just want to say that making my overpowered uncommon commanders episode right before Kaldheim spoiler season started was definitely a mistake. That being said though, let's go over some cards to consider for this commander. Now it should be pretty obvious, but Fynn is about creatures with Deathtouch, so you're going to want to include a lot of creatures with Deathtouch. And luckily for you, green has plenty of options, and many of them are really low to the ground. For example, at just a green, we've got Sedge Scorpion, Moss Viper, and Tajaru Blightblade. Each are very simple creatures, just 1/1s with Deathtouch. So you play one of these on turn 1, you get your commander down on turn 2, you swing with this, and congratulations, one of your opponents is the now proud owner of 2 poison counters. On turn 2. If they've got no blockers on turn 3, they've at least got 6 poison counters. Yeah, this can really add up quickly with an aggressive strategy by flooding your board with Deathtouch creatures. And keep in mind that Deathtouch creatures are just hard to block anyways because it's just an auto kill on their creature. And they also make fantastic blockers if you need them to, but in this deck, you're probably going to be really aggressive and you're going to be attacking a lot. So some more turn 1 options for you are Wasteland Viper, Narnam Renegade, and Gnarlwood Dryad. Wasteland Viper has a little more utility to it. It has Blood Rush for a green. Discard Wasteland Viper, target attacking creature gets +1/+2 and gains Deathtouch until end of turn. Now, unfortunately, Fynn doesn't count any Deathtouch creature dealing combat damage to an opponent. It only counts our Deathtouch creatures, because if it did, that'd be a lot of fun with this. One of our opponents is swinging at another player, they don't block, we give it Deathtouch, and they're the proud owner of now 2 more poison counters. Unexpected poison counters are the best kind of poison counters, but unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. This is still useful though because there are going to be utility creatures in this deck that we can grant Deathtouch so that they can give out poison counters as well. Regardless, if not, this is still a fantastic 1-drop. And then Narnam Renegade and Gnarlwood Dryad are also 1-drops that can get even bigger. Because Narnam Renegade has Revolt, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if a permanent we controlled left the battlefield this turn. So whether that's a creature dying or we just crack an Evolving Wilds, this comes in bigger. And then Gnarlwood Dryad has Delirium, it gets +2/+2 as long as there are 4 more card types among cards in our graveyard. So if we meet that requirement, it's a 3/3 Deathtouch for 1. And with Hornet Nest and Hornet Queen, we've got some ways to get some flying Deathtouch creatures, which is absolutely terrifying in this deck. Hornet Nest is a 0/2 with Defender, and it says whenever it's dealt damage, put that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and Deathtouch onto the battlefield. This is a huge deterrent from anyone attacking us with anything that this can block. But we might be able to actually just use this as a political tool as well. If one player is really ahead, we can ask another opponent to kindly attack us with a 5/5 so we can get 5 flying Deathtouch Hornets to take them out. Now, we're obviously going to have to make a deal with that player not to attack them with those Hornets, and that's okay, because we'll just attack them with our other Hornets made by Hornet Queen. Okay, technically they're not Hornets, they're insects, but come on, in this deck, they're literally murder Hornets. Hornet Queen is a 2/2 with flying and Deathtouch for 4 green, but it's going to be well worth paying that in this deck because when it enters the battlefield, we get 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and Deathtouch. That's right, Hornet Queen on her own can just kill a player. I mean, with the assistance of her tokens, you knew what I meant. Regardless, we're also going to have access to Deathtouch creatures that have a little more utility, so they can help us out in different ways on top of poisoning our opponents to death. For example, there's everyone's favorite Acidic Slime, which is a Deathtoucher, and when it comes into play, we get to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. So it's flexible removal, and now player removal too. Or how about the very friendly Skullwinder, a 1/3 Deathtouch, and when it enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand, then choose an opponent. That player returns a card from their graveyard to their hand. So you can use a little bit of politics with this, or you can just pick the player that has the worst graveyard. Now, though Deathtouchers are hard to block because it's a poor trade-off in most circumstances, you're still going to need some ways to get yours through. Because once the poison counters start stacking, your opponents are gonna have to block. So a card like Bellowing Tangleworm is a fantastic inclusion in this deck. It's a 4/4 with Intimidate and says other green creatures you control have Intimidate. That basically means that this creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and green creatures. So if they don't have one of those, they're out of luck and your creatures are unblockable. And at that point, it's not going to take long for you to take them out. You can also just do some more pinpoint unblockability with something like Key to the City. It adds tap, discard a card up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn, and whenever it becomes untapped, you can pay 2. If you do, draw a card. So unblockability and looting, what's not to love? Now, if you've got the budget for it, you probably want to consider a Chroma's Memorial. This just does absolutely everything for your team. A legendary artifact for 7. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. So let's break it down. Flying, get your Deathtouchers through. First strike makes them just kill absolutely anything and never die unless they're going up against something else with first strike or indestructible. Vigilance means that they can stay back for blocking too. Trample means that if they get 1 point of excess damage through, your opponent's getting 2 poison counters. Haste means that you're swinging with your Deathtouchers right away, and again, surprise poison is the best poison. And protection from black and red helps out in multiple ways. No targeted removal from black or red. No red damage-based board wipes. And no getting blocked by any red or black creatures. So yeah, if you've got $30 to throw around, this is an incredible inclusion in this deck. And speaking of incredible inclusions, let's talk about other ways to get even more poison counters on your opponents. The first way is a key strategy to many Infect decks, and that's going to be Proliferate. So a card like Pollen Bright Druid has, when it enters the battlefield, you can Proliferate. Proliferating means you choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So you just need 1 Deathtouch creature to hit to get started. And then Plague Maw Beast has tap, sacrifice a creature, Proliferate. This can be a great way to finish out a game if you can't get your attackers through. And so can Evolution Sage, which has whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Proliferate. So you're getting extra poison counters every single time you play your land, you ramp, or even if you crack an Evolving Wilds. Another thing to consider is Double Strike, though there aren't really many Double Strike cards when it comes to mono green. Fire Shrieker is a very simple equipment. It gives equipped creature Double Strike. Double Strike is fantastic in this deck for multiple reasons. Again, like First Strike, it makes your Deathtouch creature pretty much unstoppable in combat. But more importantly, when that Deathtouch double striking creature hits an opponent, it hits them twice, so therefore they get 4 poison counters instead of 2. And that can add up really quickly. But again, unfortunately, there really aren't that many double strike cards out there for green. The last card that I'm going to bring up to consider is probably going to be an expensive one, and it's quite a mean one with Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. It has if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. So this card was basically made for this commander, getting you 4 poison counters instead of 2. Oh, and it also has if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So if your opponent's playing a ++1 counters deck, sorry! But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my gut feeling on this card. And my gut feeling is this. The uncommon 2-mana Fynn is an absolute monster. Deathtouch Poison Tribal is going to be quick and efficient at taking out players. The Fangbearer is definitely a commander to take seriously when it's at your table. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are. And as always, thanks again and have a good one.